So since morning we had various perspectives from the government of India, organizations from state governments, and since the name of the conference is Global Education Skill Conclave, why don't we get a global perspective? We have with us Michael Houlgate, Deputy Director, India, British Council. Uh, let's hear from him how British Council is doing their bit in terms of enhancing education and also collaboration between the India and UK. So huge round of applause for him. Over to you, Michael. And I again request all of you to kindly keep your speeches within 7 to 8 minutes as we are running short of time. Thank you so much.
Good. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'd like to start by saying a huge thanks to the organizers, APAC. Thanks to all of the speakers, the Honourable Minister. It's really an honor to be here to represent the global perspective as has been introduced. And I'll do my best to say a little bit about what the UK is doing to work with India on this work. So my name is Michael Houlgate. I work for the British Council here in Delhi as Deputy Director. The British Council works very closely with other parts of the UK's mission in India, with the Foreign Office, with the Department for Business and Trade, with the Department for Education, to support the development and growth of education and cultural relations between India and the UK. What we try to do is connect the two sectors together. So we want to help young people, students, teachers, learners, academics from India and the UK to connect with each other and to connect with new knowledge and new opportunity. We connect institutions to each other, helping universities, colleges, schools to work together in partnership to solve critical global challenges. And we connect policymakers together to try to work together to strengthen our education systems. And in doing all of this work, in connecting our education sectors to each other, we hope that we're able to provide better education, more relevant skills, and more opportunity to young people from India and from the UK. Ultimately, what our work is trying to do is create greater economic resilience in both countries as a direct result of a well-skilled and higher quality workforce. We want to improve employability, we want to improve productivity, and we want to promote inclusivity, ensuring that young people from the UK and India, regardless of background, can access the skills and the opportunities that they need to flourish in their future study and in their future careers and in their future lives. So we work to connect the education sectors between the two countries. We often say at these types of events that there has never been a time in history to be doing the work that we're trying to do. When it comes to the UK-India education relationship, it really seems that over the past couple of years, the stars have really been aligning. On the UK side, we see emerging from the pandemic, emerging from Brexit, in a higher education sector, an education sector that's really looking to India as its most important new partner for the coming decades. The UK has an international education strategy that prioritizes partnership with a number of countries, and India is absolutely front and center of that international education strategy. And meanwhile, on the Indian side, we've had the national education policy a couple years ago that has, as was mentioned in the previous address, an explicit focus on internationalization, and as well as incredible ambitions to achieve massive growth in the higher education sector over the coming decade. So these two trends on the UK side and the Indian side are really coming together to ensure that education becomes an increasingly important part of the UK-India relationship. In May 2021, the two prime ministers of the UK and India announced the India-UK Roadmap 2030, which sets out a number of areas of deep cooperation between the two countries: science, climate, trade, defense, and other areas. And I'm very proud that the British Council has been at the forefront of realizing some of the education objectives in that roadmap, including greater international collaboration in education, research, and innovation, expanding cooperations in light of India's national education policy, including signing an agreement on the mutual recognition of qualifications, and also working on the simplification of education regulatory frameworks. So let me say a few words about what the British Council and the UK government are doing to support the development of ties between the education sectors in India and the UK. And I'll start with what I was just mentioning that we were working on under the roadmap, which is policy and regulation. We've seen a lot of great changes in education policy regulation over the past couple of years. A colleague from the UGC was talking about some of the new regulations that have come into play, transnational education, international branch campuses, and so on. The UK and India want to work together to make it easier for our education institutions to partner. A critical part of all of this was in July 2022, the UK and India signed a memorandum of understanding on the mutual recognition of academic qualifications. The British Council worked very closely with partners, including especially Association of Indian Universities, other partners across the Indian government, partners across the UK government, with ENIC UK, who are the regulatory agency for qualifications in the UK. We've organized knowledge sharing webinars to help both UK and Indian universities work out how to work together on degree equivalence. And this has really been vital in enabling increased exchange of knowledge between institutions and the mobility of students between the two countries. We talk a lot about mutual recognition of qualifications, and it was a landmark agreement, but that's just part of the picture. As Dr. Kapoor from UGC was talking about, there have been new regulations on transnational education, on international branch campuses. The UK has contributed feedback and suggestions to support the development of these regulations. And it has been really enthusiastically welcomed across the UK sector to have these new liberal regulations to support joint dual degrees, twinning arrangements, to support new international branch campuses. It's been really welcomed, and I think we feel that there's going to be a lot happening in the space over the coming years. Late last year, autumn 2023, we had a visit from the UK's international education champion, Sir Steve Smith, and he said he's expecting to see an explosion of partnerships over the coming years between India and UK that has been enabled by these new regulations, which is super exciting. So that's some of the work that we've been doing, focusing on education policy. And the last point about this policy enabling partnerships leads me to the second point which I wanted to make, which is the work that we do to connect institutions. So a big area of focus for us is institutional partnerships, supporting education institutions, universities, schools, colleges, to connect and work together in partnership. And we're seeing record numbers of universities from the UK and India working together on research partnerships, transnational education partnerships, joint courses, industry collaborations. We had a couple of months ago the announcement of the new round of UKIERI, which is a long-running UK-India bilateral education program, where we've supported 34 new research partnerships, looking at energy, climate impact, next-gen communications, advanced computing. Through the British Council's Going Global program over the last years, we've supported 93 new UK-India partnerships, looking at teaching and learning collaborations and industry collaborations. All told, we've invested more than £5 million over the past 2 years to support UK-India collaborations. This free flow of knowledge and ideas between India and the UK is not just beneficial to India and the UK. It's also beneficial for the world at large, because what these universities are doing is working together to develop new solutions to some of the critical challenges that the entire world is facing, looking at food security, health, climate, disaster resilience. So there's lots happening. There's a lot more that we can do as well. We want to maintain all of this higher education collaboration, but there's a lot more that we can do in new areas that we want to branch out into. And actually skills, vocational education, is an area where we can do much more. And there are a number of areas in skills where the UK can work together with partners and stakeholders in India. We can work together on the provision of vocational training, supporting students with skills training, regulated qualifications, and apprenticeships. We can work together on quality assessment, especially when using online or blended approaches, recreating and maintaining a learning environment that enables a wide range of students to learn skills, and on teacher training. So lots more areas that we want to branch out into. Okay, so it's saying my time's up, so I'm just going to quickly race through the last little bit of my remarks. So I've spoken about what we do to connect India and the UK at the policy level. I've spoken about what we do to connect institutions. And then the final thing that I want to talk about is what we do to directly benefit individuals. How can we connect aspirational young people from the UK and from India to new opportunity and to new knowledge? We're seeing record numbers of young people traveling between our countries in both directions, trying to gain new perspectives and outlooks that come from studying in a different country. India is the second largest sending country to the UK, and through initiatives such as the UK's graduate routes, with the post-study work visa, through the mutual recognition of qualifications, and through scholarship programs, we're seeing ever greater mobility and exchange between the UK and India. We want to maintain this. The UK remains open and welcoming to students from India to come and study. But we also know, given the size of India, the size of the population, there's not going to be spaces in UK universities for every Indian who might want to study there. And the fact is there are many, many students from India who won't be able to gain a UK degree because they can't afford to go to the UK to study. We would like to have an even greater number of young people from India being able to access UK qualifications. And we want UK education to be able to reach students from every strata of society and every geographic location. And that brings us back to what I was saying before about these transnational education partnerships. We will continue to support young Indians who want to go to the UK to study, but at the same time, we're really excited about all of these new transnational education partnerships, branch campuses, dual degrees, joint degrees, twinning arrangements that are being enabled by our work on policy and institutional partnerships as a way to drastically increase the accessibility of UK qualifications in India. And the final thing I want to say is we also want to look at redressing some of the imbalance in mobility flows. Right now, we have more than 100,000 Indians who go to the UK every year to study, but only a few thousand Brits who come to India to study. And we want to redress this imbalance. There's an imbalance in the numbers, but we also see a real imbalance in how the UK understands India versus how India understands the UK. And because India is one of the most important countries in the world for the coming decades, the UK needs to improve its understanding. So we're going to work together to develop a new program to bring 10,000 young people from the UK out to India for study and for work and for cultural immersion over the coming years. Okay, so I'll wrap up now. I've spoken about what we do to connect our education sectors, what we do to connect young people from India and the UK with new opportunity and knowledge, how we connect institutions from India and the UK to work together in partnership, offering joint programs, collaborating on joint research, vital to solving global challenges, and how we connect policymakers from both countries to work together and enable all of the above through landmark agreements such as the mutual recognition of qualification. I want to end with this quote about connections. I've talked about connections a lot in these remarks. And there's a brilliant quote that I always like from the British scientist Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who was the inventor of the World Wide Web. And he said, he was giving this analogy about the human brain. He said, the human brain is billions and billions of neurons, but the neurons by themselves are just mush. He said, they're just mush. They don't do anything by themselves. What makes the brain a powerful organ isn't the neurons, but it's the synapses. It's the connections between the neurons that make the brain powerful. And I think when we look at global education, it is the connections that are really key to enabling change in our education systems. So I'll leave it there. Thank you again so much. Just to reiterate, the UK is here. We're keen to participate. We're keen to engage, to contribute to education and skill development projects, working with central government, with state governments, with corporate partners, with academic partners. We'd love to hear from you and discuss ideas. Please come and speak to me. And I think my colleague Piyush from Department of Business and Trade might be here as well. And please go and speak to him as well. We can share our contact details. And looking forward to working with you over the coming months and years. Thank you very much.
So as Michael was telling, this is the contact details for both Michael and Piyush Awasthi is from the Deputy UK High Commissioner Hyderabad. Any of you might be interested, they can connect with them as well. Thank you, Michael. I think the crux of your speech was partnership, and that can help to transform education. And also you focused on a really important factor, that is people to people connect. That can be at policy level, that can be at individual level, and that also can be institutional level. But people to people connect, and one of the examples, and I think you said that's a new info that British Council is going to bring 10,000 students from UK to study in India. That is again also talked about the rising importance of India in the higher education spectrum globally as well. Thank you, Michael, for sharing with us your thoughts. I think Michael has to leave, so can we have Michael's memento on stage, please? And I request if AICT Chairman T.G. Sitharamanji can kindly hand over the memento to Michael. So can you have a huge round of applause for Michael Houlgate, the Deputy Director in the British Council, and he has been given the token appreciation by T.G. Sitharam, Chairman, All India Council of Technical Education.